Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to Brilliance Business. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler. Conversations with leading experts in business. We have an incredible show for you today. We are streaming live on mspnewsglobal.com, Facebook, Periscope, LinkedIn, YouTube, post-production, Instagram, and we're also live on the E360 TV network, which is on Apple TV, Fire TV, Android TV, Roku, and many, many more. Welcome to the show. Before we get started and I bring in our incredible guest, I just want to give a great shout out to our main official sponsor, Craig Shelley, Beverly Hills Luxury Watches and Fine Jewellery at craigshelley.com. So I think that gives us a chance now to get started with the show, and we're joined by the incredible Travis Fox. Hey Travis, so thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Good morning. An absolute pleasure. And by the way, for those of you who don't know Craig Shelley, I do. You definitely want to go check out that space. He's a fantastic individual and a great philanthropist as well. So I didn't know he was the sponsor of the show. So small world.
He's my official main sponsor. He's supported me on lots of products, Dr. Travis, and we have a great relationship, and I really, really admire the work he's doing. But today is all about you. You have such an incredible career and journey, Dr. Travis. I've had the opportunity to interview you before on my radio show as well. I really want to dig deep into your life today so our viewers, our listeners really get a feel of what you are about. And I always like to start at the very beginning. So can we go back to your past and the challenges that you personally have faced, what have led you to what you do today?
Yeah, sure. We can, I just turned 50 last year in 2020, so it might be a journey. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes. The Cliff Notes was I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and spent basically the first 9 years of my life outside the United States. That was a mixture between Japan and Germany. My mother was a model and an actress at the time, and met my father, who was a fighter pilot. And I always say, if you ever saw the original movie Top Gun from the 80s, it didn't end like that. It was a flyby. So by the time I was 9.5, my parents decided to split and get a divorce. And I think the first challenge to your question was at that moment, because my parents, who I was an only child, so my parents had an interesting concept of sitting me down and saying, "Hey, we're going to get divorced. You get to choose who you live with." And I would tell you at 9 years old, now looking back, using the Dr. Fox, looking back at myself, I would tell you that my childhood at that moment kind of ended, because at that moment I had to start making very adult, emotionally driven decisions with very little information, but moving mostly just out of instinct. And so I wouldn't say that I had a bad childhood or give you a sob story. That's not necessarily true. But what it did do is it put me in a space of having to choose between my parents. And that was a challenge for me. That was most emotionally difficult. And I think that's when I started to recognize that, at a very young age, we are emotional creatures, yet there's no schooling for it. You just kind of wing it. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And then because I moved so much as a kid, I was the new kid a lot until I finally really got into high school and my golf career. So that also was a challenge, because if you've ever been the new kid, which anybody, watching your show, I'm sure has been the new kid at least once, you all went to school at least one time. But if you've done it as often as I did, you had to learn to constantly adapt to new cultures, to new social cultures and circles in each one of the schools. And then also too, just the fact that you're the new kid. And so what it actually did for me, long story, one, at first, it helped me overcome being shy, because I wouldn't have any friends if I was shy. And I had to learn that, my friends come and go. But two, it helped me also appreciate people from all walks of life, all different cultures, which now obviously serves me in spades, 50 years later. And I'd say those are the first couple. I'd say the big challenge was, and how I ended up becoming Dr. Fox was when I was 17 rolling 18, and I became a first-time father. Wasn't part of the plan, definitely wasn't a part of my father's plan, but it became part of what we call great architect's plan, and that was the deal. And so becoming a first-time father was, as anybody who is a young parent, it has its challenges. You know, there is no playbook. You're still a kid yourself. And on top of that, you're now responsible, quote unquote, to this individual, this child that you brought into the world. And so now for me, that put a challenge on my golf career. And I ended up having kind of this emotional breakdown. People call it a midlife crisis. Well, I had a mid-teen crisis, and I had it early. But that was a prerequisite and a requirement in my journey to snap me out of, hey, I'm playing golf for my father. I'm not playing golf because that's what I really love. I like golf. I still like it to this day. I've coached on the tour for, PGA Tour for 10 years. I had a great time doing it. But I don't love golf, and it's a game you got to love. You got to love it inside and out all day long and twice on Sunday, and I didn't. And so that cathartic experience ended up spinning me into the path that was really became my life, which now some 31 years later, the Architects of Being Academy is still cruising right along and has done tens of thousands of people. And what ended up happening is I ended up combining my educational background and my love for teaching and my ability to be on stage, film, and television and camera, along with entertainment. Because one of the things I discovered was the teachers that made the most impact on me were entertaining. The people that were, or the teachers that were, let's say, dry or more academic, made no impact on me. I took the class, I got the grade, I left. So to me, I started to learn the distinction, which then, some 15 years later, when my third child was born, my second son was born fully autistic. That's when I realized that the education system and a learning system are two very, very different things. And I became extraordinarily passionate about, let's turn our education system into a learning system that has the entertainment value without being, over the top, although I've been accused of being over the top many times, but also has the academic ability to track and modulate. Because if we learn emotionally, going all the way back to when I was 9, as a precursor and a platform for that, then it makes sense that if we can help people learn emotionally what they want to learn, then they're going to be able to take that on a journey that is truly filled with their own passion. They don't need to keep going refilling their cup of passion, but they'll also know their purpose and what they're targeting. And then with persistence, and they have a blueprint to do that, they can actually create whatever life they want to create, whatever that means. Whether that means, hey, I want to be the next Elon Musk, or, hey, I want to live on a beach and make surfboards. Both have equal value as far as life journey is concerned, but each needs and requires a blueprint and something that gets into your DNA. And, there's been a million challenges from then until now that we don't have enough time on the show to go through, and I wouldn't want to, take everyone down that road or bore them. But those are the big ones that really kind of made impacts that evolved, Travis into Dr. Fox, and ultimately back into, Travis Fox, the architect, being, founder for the Academy. And I'd say that's where we'd start there.
Great starting point, Dr. Travis. And I resonated with how you said you felt you had to choose between your parents. My parents split up when I was 9 years old, and I can resonate with you on that. I think as a child, your parents separating, divorcing, it can really, really hurt you as a young person. And it does go into that subconscious mind as well. I think it does affect you through your life, and it's just a hard thing to go through. So any children out there, just know that when you get older, you will realise that life does get better, and your both parents will be better and happy, and everyone will be winning. So that was a great starting point as well about Elon Musk. I wouldn't mind being able to invest 1.5 billion into Bitcoin. I'm a big Bitcoin fan and Ethereum. So
me too.
I just think that was a great move what he did the other day. Oh. So yes, great for cryptos.
Well, and now triggering on top of it, if I may, now you have Elon, and then Apple. Tim Cook comes right over the top and says, "Well, Apple's going to do the exact same thing and now start using these cryptocurrencies as a form of value exchange, which to me, I find fascinating from the perspective of, hey, money's been around for about, I don't know, 6 centuries in the current state that it's in and how it's been, controlled or governed. To have something that truly is controlled by the people, what a fascinating concept on a global scale. So I'm excited to see where these two, masters of business take the world, Tim Cook and both Elon Musk. It'll be exciting. I agree with you 100%.
Very exciting time. So we've talked about your past a little bit, and we will go more into detail about the architect of being shortly. I want to go into your own personal development a little bit first, because you're helping people to transform. And I know from my own life, it's possible to create a whole new reality. I have done it. So tell us a little bit about the self-work and personal development you have done for yourself.
Yeah, great question. Well, first, I'm a consummate student, to this day, 31 years later. I always tell people I have all these letters before and after my name, which just means I'm really good at learning. It doesn't mean I know anything. It just means I was really good at learning stuff. And the learning, I believe, and this is really kind of the impetus for the change. And there's a 2-part scenario to that. One was when my autistic son was born, I became very crystal clear that my ability as a master communicator here, I've done film, I've done television, I've done more radio than I know what to do with. I was on XM for 12 years, all these things that are supposed to indicate that I'm a master communicator and that all these letters mean something. And then my autistic son shows up. I have no idea how to communicate with him. He doesn't speak the same way a neurotypical does. Doesn't mean he's less than. In fact, I believe autistics are an evolution on our ability to be present. However, they communicate emotionally. They don't communicate, necessarily through language as a primary. Now, obviously, my son has, become audible and learned that over the years and just graduated high school last year, as a matter of fact. But those first 3 or 4 years, I would tell you I had another midlife crisis, because all of a sudden I went from being, the great Dr. Fox, and I use that term loosely, to now I'm an idiot. I have no idea how to talk to my kid. Yet, supposedly I've done this 2 times before with my older son and my daughter. I'm thinking I got this down to a science. Okay, this is going to be the last one. We're going to knock this out of the park. We've already made all the mistakes with the first 2. We kind of know what to do. We know what to expect. We know everything from the diapers to the whole deal. And he comes along and it's a right turn. And I got really crystal clear that communication, as it's taught from a mindset, mind training, psychological, psychodynamic point of view, is limited. It's based on a concept of language. And it's, you can do ideomotor response and you can do body language, and that's great. But autistics don't care about any of that stuff. They care about presence. And that's not really taught in a profound way unless you go out and you try maybe what we call the existential experiences. And I've done those as well. So I always tell people my journey has been a real strong bihemispheric, conversion of left brain and right brain, going, okay, I've got all the academia, great. But where I learned the most was experientially. And that's everything from ayahuasca journey and the shamanic side to, summiting Kilimanjaro and that was just summiting, was just a spiritual experience in of itself. But I think the biggest impact on me has been watching the students and the student body through the academy, because we really do teach the inside out model, and not from a, hey, if you just think it'll fall out of the sky kind of thing, but an actual clinical, and then how to apply that. And then most importantly, the experiential of measurement. And so my journey has been continuing to evolve, but I'm also I'm a consummate student. There is no such thing in my world that says you're an expert. In fact, my mentor who took the journey a while back and left the planet, he said, do you know the etymology of the word doctor, Travis? And I said, no. He goes, go look it up. So I did. So I did a research etymology on the word doctor, and it derives from a Latin word means teacher. And while we call teacher, expert is synonymous with doctor in the Western world, in the Eastern world, teacher, in my opinion, has a greater impact than the word doctor. And so for me, when I looked at the word doctor, at the time I was 36, I said, I don't know that I'm worthy of the title teacher, because I'm repeating, even though I was good at it and done stages and hours and all this other stuff that's supposed to mean I'm an expert, whatever that means. But I realized that I was still really repeating and regurgitating over and over what they had taught me. And what Doc really did was to teach me to go, hey, I didn't teach you to be a replicate. I didn't teach you to repeat things. I taught you so that you could teach people how to unwind it themselves, because we believe everybody's an architect within. But if you don't have the blueprint, then how the heck do you build anything? How do you unwind it? How do you remodel it? How do you, put a new roof on it? And again, metaphoric analogy. And so for my personal journey, it's a constant evolution and dive. Everything we do in the academy, I personally practice. I know that, people are like, no way. I'm like, yeah. So for example, my next book, which will be my 4th book, comes out this year. And Lifestyle Publishing is our publisher over with Jesse Krieger, who's been phenomenal at helping me guide me through this next book, because it's my first book that really takes my personal journey and puts it on paper. And the book is called Blueprint to Healing. And it's a healing process. And I went through a very traumatic situation 2 years ago that emotionally threw me off kilter. I had to go to my board and say, guys, I need you to help me out here. Just because I'm the founder of this thing doesn't mean I'm not a mess too. I've got to work through my own stuff. What I became fascinated, though, was how do we heal? What the heck does healing actually mean? And if you really look at overall, the macro in, the cog world, the cognitive world, is time heals all wounds. Nothing could be further from the truth. Time doesn't heal squat. Time doesn't heal a dang thing. The reason that we all know that is because we're all still patternistically, Mark, you and I as a comparative analogy, are still in some ways working through these traumas that we've experienced that, we thought they were they were gone long time ago. I mean, for you and me, that was 41 years ago. And yet the truth is they still play out. And we call in the academy what we call the beautiful darkness. And that is not darkness from an evil and a pitchfork and all that religious connotation. What I mean is down here in the darkness of ourselves, where we actually dim our own enlightenment, our own lighted self, which you're always enlightened. You're never not, because we're all enlightened beings who came down here to earth for a couple of minutes, and then you're going to go back to wherever that is. Whatever you call that is up to you. I'm not smart enough to tell people what to call that. I just call it great architect for simplicity. And then you look at that concept and go, let's take Mark and I for an example. That experience that each of us had at 9 had a layer and lens to it of emotional trauma, disposition, how we see the world. Did we repel from it? Did we expand from it? The things that we had to work through, we call those the layers and lenses. And the academy became dedicated to the step-by-step process to be able to use the clinical part of that without making it boring, making it entertaining, but 2, how to apply that for real in a step-by-step blueprint. And then 3, get measurable results. Because one of the things that used to bother me about the self-transformation industry was, how do I actually measure my result? Well, I feel better. Okay, well, what happens on the days you don't feel better? Well, so does that negate it? And so it's a one step forward, 1 step back, or is it 1 step forward, 2 steps back? And often I found, and really was an impetus for change for me, was, I was on the speaker circuit. I did the buy my stuff at the back of the room kind of thing. And I found that I had a real conflict with it. Not conflict from badness, but going, I really wanted people to use it. And I knew that they weren't. I knew that some 80 to 90% of the people who went to the back of the room that engaged in whatever we were doing at the time were never going to apply it. And that just pissed me off and bothered me. And I'm like, I can't make them do it. That's the truth. But I really am passionate about it. So when I started endeavoring, and this goes back 2007 is when I really, really snapped to it. I said, why aren't we taking this online? And again, the internet wasn't really at that time there, but we were still precursoring to it, was why aren't we taking this online where we can track the academic part of it? It can be a community where we can stay connected globally, and you can learn educationally and learn what you want to learn, but learn in a way that you can actually apply it and have fun. And my personal journey has been about that whole experience. And I found that every time I go through my own journey, one, I share it with the academy. I'm very open with our student body around the globe about what I'm dealing with, because I'm a firm believer that just because I'm the founder and CEO of the company doesn't mean I'm perfect. In fact, quite the opposite. I started my journey, as you know from the beginning of your show here, to fix Travis Fox. Because Travis Fox was going through some stuff himself, and there was nothing that really helped me. I thought I needed help with my golf game. What I really needed help was getting really clear on what my passion, my purpose was. Great. Now what? Well, again, I've traveled the world 3 times. Literally, have I seen everything? No. Have I seen a lot? Yes. Have I done some amazing things? Beyond. Are there more things I want to do? Yep, I do. There's a ton of things that I want to do, and I'm going to. But I also believe that part of that journey now is every experience that I partake in, whether it's an ayahuasca journey, whether it's climbing a mountain, surfing a wave, having a great conversation with a friend on one of their shows like this one. everything for me is about a learning experience. What am I learning? Not learning from knowledge, but learning experientially. How does it make me feel? Where are the parts of me that resist that? Where are the parts that I'm not looking at? What is that person reflecting back from me so that I can see parts of myself that I'm too blind, too arrogant, too stupid, not aware of, whatever words you want to use, not seeing? Because when I start to understand what healing was about, I got really crystal clear that healing is a whole nother process and it has nothing to do with time. In fact, time, using you and I as the example, we end up suppressing those things. We try to distract ourselves from those things and they start showing up like cracks in a dam in different parts of our lives. And we don't really necessarily want to associate it because we're so busy avoiding ourselves with distractions that we not only do never really get to heal, we compound it and we keep doing it over and over and over. And that's because we don't really have a blueprint to understand how our brain and body actually works. That's how I do it.
You've made some great points there, Travis, and I like the bit about your autistic son, how you said he lives in the present. So I think that's a great life lesson for many, many people out there because everything happens in the present moment. If you're too stuck in your past, that's going to hold you back. Or if you're always worrying about the future, everything does happen in the present moment. That's great that you've really given us an understanding of your own personal development journey and also the journey that you have been on through Architects of Being, because it's really helping so many people. We are about to go to a commercial break. Join us after the break. Dr. Travis has shared some of his story, challenges that he has overcome. He's shared his own personal journey of personal development and self-improvement. And we've learned a little bit about Architects of Being. Join us after the commercial break. Welcome back to Brilliance Business. We're here with Dr. Travis. Before the break, we have discussed all of Travis's background, his challenges. We have learned more about his personal development journey, Architects of Being. So before we leave this chapter behind, all about your past and self-improvement and share a little bit more about Architects of Being. What does it offer people, Travis? Because I would like to get on to talk about Beyond the Secret after this. So let's spend a little bit more time on Architects of Being.
Sure. And I'll preempt that conversation with a dovetail from our previous chapter and about my son and the greatest lesson I've learned and what the Architects of Being's real base plate is. And they dovetail. So when my son was 7, my autistic son was 7, I'll never forget it. We were in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. And as most kids would normally do, when there's a pile of leaves during the fall, most kids would jump in the leaves and they toss them up and down like we all did. Not my son. My son took a very different approach. And I sat and watched him in dead silence. I was about 15 feet away from him. And he went and stared at this pile of leaves and he studied them. And I'm like, what is he doing? But I wanted to see where he was taking it. So I sat back in quiet instead of intervening and telling him how to experience it. I just wanted to watch. So he goes in and he looks and then he handpicks these 2 particular leaves. To this day, I have no idea why, but he chose them for whatever reason. And then he studied them and he stared at them for what seemed like forever. It's probably realistically 30 seconds. But in that space, when time stands still, when you're uber present, everything just kind of stops. And so I watched him. And then with the utmost of diligence and presence, he starts to just gently crunch the leaves. And he is absolutely elated about the crunching sound, the ability that he is doing that, and the feeling in his hand texturally. And next thing I know, he breaks out in what autistics tend to do, which is called modulation, where they flap their hands. And that's because they have so much energy and so much excitement, so much emotion in their body that it literally overwhelms their system, and they've got to get that energy out. And I looked and I realized, and then he did it again, the exact same process. And this went on for about a half hour. And I just started bawling. I literally started crying, and I asked myself, what am I crying about? And I thought, well, maybe it's tears of happiness and my son's enjoying leaves. That's true. But the real truth is, and we're back to that healing point, I had realized I had never been that happy, that blissful about anything in my life. And I've done amazing and had amazing experiences of brilliant friends and students everywhere. And I'd never known that kind of bliss by being that present by something so simple yet so complex as just crunching leaves. And it snapped me too. And I went, that's what's missing in our entire educational system. Heart. It's not in it. If you look at all of our educational system, from elementary to middle school to high school, even to university, we are continually pressed into academia and to logic. We are taught to push our emotions aside, that everything needs to be non-emotional, which is bass-ackwards because everything about us is emotional. It made no sense. And it immediately changed the academy, where I went back to our board and said, stop, we're missing something. We can teach all the academia. We teach people how to teach. We give them the opportunity to become master architect advisors, where they can come teach on passion and purpose at the academy and get paid to do it, and really have this infrastructure that is built the way we believe university and high school should have been. What's the point of going to learn something if you don't apply it or be able to make money at it, or a lifestyle, or being passionate about it? Well, the academy is all dedicated to that. So you get an opportunity to come in and you take that journey. And yeah, sometimes that journey is going to rip some layers off of you, and sometimes it's going to crunch you like that leaf, but you're going to be present. You're going to understand how you get in your own way. You're going to be able to apply it, and then you can make a lifestyle. We call it the ABCs of education. Architect your life, then create a blueprint for your business. And then when those two are truly in alignment, because you understand what that means for you personally, then you can create a lifestyle. And that lifestyle could be teaching at the academy or helping you create your own course inside the academy itself, because everything we do is contained, from our production staff to our graphics, to our infrastructure, to our academic trackability, to our community and social. It's all inside the academy, so that you, as a teacher, coach, instructor, consultant, broadcaster, whatever you want to call yourself as far as the title is concerned, you have the ability to do that. And we've been doing that now for the last, 16 years has been our impetus. And so when you come into the academy, everybody starts the exact same spot, not because everybody's the same, but because everybody needs to do the same thing. And that's called the jump in. And you jump in live. And it's a class I teach live every month. I still teach it to this day. And then that's really because we need to jump in. And what I mean by jump in is, we jump into relationships, we jump into conversations, we jump on the phone, but we never jump into ourselves. In fact, we do quite the opposite. We avoid it as much as absolutely possible. We'll do a lot of mental work, but that doesn't mean we're actually releasing and working on what's actually driving this thing above our shoulders called our head or brain. In fact, what's the most insane part about the entire self-help industry, and something that I am a critic of it, including myself, which was the impetus of change due to my son, was that we keep asking mind to solve mind. That's insane. You can't ask the mechanism that is the functional issue to solve itself. It is only based on mechanisms and structure that it's designed to be. And so we come along and we say, hey, Mark, I need to really heal this process. Or, hey, Mark, I really don't know what my passion is. Or, hey, Mark, I don't know how to do good in business, blah, blah, blah. But then you take to your mind, okay, now I need to solve that. Okay. Well, I don't know about you, but that ends up usually somewhere around 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling fan and just going around and around in the circle. Just like that fan, your brain goes over and over because it has no frame of reference. Now, you can imagine, you can fantasize, you can vision board, you can journal, you can do all those things. But if down here at the emotional traumatic level, if you're not really crystal clear what's going on, you will have the one step forward, one step back, because you'll start to make an advance. And then the real you, the emotional you, the one that has a self-belief structure, that still has a trauma or a wound, one that has a fear mechanism, one that's afraid. And none of those are bad. They're just down there in that darkness of ourselves. And until they're released and you truly understand how to really reprogram yourself, you're really just, playing the game of, hey, I want to do this and I want to do that, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And then you get frustrated and then you start really kicking your own butt. And I don't know about anybody of your listeners and you, Mark, but I know I've got a black belt in kicking Travis Fox's rear end. I'm fantastic at it if I stay up here. And I think that becomes the challenge. And so the Architects of Being is dedicated to changing our educational system into a full learning system with academic track, but experiential and entertainment with a community that's worldwide now. We truly are worldwide. That know you're not alone, that you're going through it, and you have an end result. Because how many of us went to some sort of school, high school, university, or post-university, got a piece of paper, and don't do anything in our career that has to do with that piece of paper we paid for? It makes zero sense to me. And so our entire agenda is going, hey, wait a minute, kids. What if you actually went and learned what you wanted to learn? What if you got educated in that space? You learned how to use it. You know how to create a business model out of it. And you have the full support of the academy that taught you that so that you could do it. Because isn't that what university is supposed to be about? Unfortunately, our university system and our educational system is about putting you in debt. It's about putting you in a slave mindset. And I'm not saying all of it. I'm just saying as a macro comment. And unfortunately, many of us have gone through this, and we all know somebody who has this amazing degree from an amazing university and is not even involved in that industry at all. And it's like, well, what was the point? And I use my older son as a perfect example. My older son is a complete opposite than my autistic son. And that is, I call him Captain America. He is the overachiever in the family. He probably gets that from me. So he's a special forces kid. He did 4 tours for the United States government. He went to USC and got a master's in public administration. He graduated Georgetown Law, passed the bar the first time in DC, and then says, Dad, I don't want to be a lawyer. Probably could have thought about that before we went to Georgetown. So you look at that as a perfect example that we go into university with a passion and a purpose. And in a lot of cases, not always, a lot of cases, it's literally bored out of us. It's logically compressed into us. And then we come out and then now we have to do something to pay off our debt or to say that we got this degree or to honor our parents who put us through maybe university and finance that bill for us. As opposed to here at the Academy, we have an earn to learn and learn to earn program. So you learn how to be a business person as you're a student so that as you become a master architect and become a master architect advisor, you know how to do both. That's what the ABCs of education could have been and should have been, in our opinion. And that's what the Academy is dedicated to.
I hear you. I think sometimes as well, Travis, these emotions and traumas, you don't really know yourself that they're there. You really have to dig deep in yourself with self-work to really recognize those things that are really holding you back from your past. I know this from my own experience and coming from the heart as well, you mentioned, which is really, really important because obviously the heart and the mind are connected as well. I just think it's great work that you're doing. And
Thank you.
I think it's great for us now to really give some just tips and guidance of support. There's been people struggling out there a lot, Travis, for the last year. Record numbers of people losing jobs, businesses going down and bust, and not just only in business, people are suffering, being isolated and loss of family members. Now, what you do, you can help people in business really transform their realities, but also people with personal issues or people who need to do a bit of self-work. Just give us a few steps what people can take to make their journeys a little bit more smoother this 2021, because it's been a struggle for many out there, Travis.
Yeah, it has. And, if you'd said, Mark, if we had talked, back in 2019, we'd said to each other, hey, 2020 is going to be the most cathartic, transformative year of our lifetime. We both would have looked at each other and said, you lost your marbles, mate. You're off your rocker. And here we are. And so one of the things that I think is most interesting, and it's in an odd way how we've arrived at it, but it is, we all knew that everything was going to go online in some form or another. It doesn't replace the ability or the desire for human connection, but it does force us into the transition. And what it also has done is it's really got us to get crystal clear how distractionary we really are. And that I think is where most people have been struggling. And part of where I've really been focusing and the Academy's been focusing on, and we're releasing 2 master courses this month, as a matter of fact, that are 20-year programs, fully accredited, that help parents identify at-risk behavior from their youth. I'm a firm believer, as is my board, that coming back worldwide, that our number one issue with our youth is going to be mental health. These kids are dealing with something that none of us, I don't care what industry you're from, have any form or frame of reference. We have never experienced this thing in known human history that we're aware of, at least in the last 2 centuries. The bubonic plague is the last one that came even close. And we have no frame of reference. And so these kids are dealing with bombardment of the internet, desocialization, deconstruction of what a family unit does look like, and now a reconstruction of that family unit now that there's been the containment of, I'm used to mom and dad going to work. Now they're home all day because we can't go anywhere. And yet we call ourselves a family. And then you get to really look at how much time did we spend apart when we were normal? Now that we're together, how come we're frustrated? How come domestic violence is on the rise? How much divorce is on the rise? Because we're starting to really look at, and this is where it gets a little dark before we peel those lenses off, going back to the previous part of our chapter here, is we get to look at how much time we spend distracting. Now, the downside of that, family, is you're going to get to look at how much you spend your time distracting yourself. Yet at the same time, once you're willing to look at that and recognize that 99% of it is a fear mechanism. I'm not diminishing any experience. I've had challenges last year myself. The Academy did. And yet, ironically, if I may be so bold and somewhat braggadocious, our Academy grew 800% from May to December without any paid traffic, just purely organic, on 2 fundamental reasons. One, we are a worldwide community, and our culture inside the Academy, we are absolutely ruthless about it staying in a connective, cooperative space. We value everyone, and everyone gets to speak. Everyone has their ability to become who they choose to be, and it's and really what I call the unconditional space. We've all been conditional. We've all had conditional love. We've all given conditional love. We've all said it's got to look like this and perform like this. And I really see that model starting to deconstruct at a global scale. But also, too, you have an opportunity now. Now, everyone says, well, the internet explosion's over. No, it's not. Not even close, family. We haven't even made a dent in a dent from what can be done. And now you get to really create a life that you want. And maybe you can do it at home because it doesn't take much to start. I know that sounds odd, but it doesn't. And if you're really willing to unwind what you think your life is supposed to look like, how it should look, and stop comparing yourself to the Elon Musk or the Tim Cooks or whomever the heck you compare yourself to, or even the illusions that we all know are BS on social media. Stop comparing yourself and really just go into the distraction area. Where am I distracting myself from what I really want to experience? And then get into the space of passion. Now, that's going to be a challenge for some of you because most of us think that passion's an external experience. And that's something we desperately and deeply connect with in the Academy. We go, hey, kids, the number one drug addiction on the planet is the addiction to the search. We're all addicted to the search. I got to find my passion. I got to find my soulmate. I got to find my purpose. But if you don't have a map or a blueprint, how the heck are you going to find it? You're just running around in circles. And so first thing we do is the blueprint of walking in and jumping in. Here's how you actually go, what is the conscious mind doing? What are the 7 rules that every human being has to deal with? How does my subconscious mind store beliefs? Where do they really come from? What are they dynamically constructed of, from a higher value system to the entire sequence of my belief systems in and of itself? The emotional traumas and drivers that drive those belief systems that are buried down in here. And ultimately we call the architect, which is your heart or your being. And it harkens all the way back to the Egyptian times. So I want to be very clear that the knowledge of us as humans, all right, is not new. How we're applying that knowledge in a technology world, that's new. Because if you go all the way back to the pharaohs, everyone knows that the embalming process, the first thing that they did was crack the back of the skull. And then they would pull the pharaoh's brains out through the nostril. And then they would open up the pharaoh and take all the organs out and put them in jars for the afterlife, leaving the only thing in the body before the mummification occurred was the heart. And that's because they felt that the pharaoh was led by the heart in this life and would need his heart in the next life to know the true path. Therefore, if you take that knowledge and wisdom, whether sounding altruistic or whether it's just good old-fashioned physical mummification, it lends to the philosophy that you're an emotional creature. and to let your passion out and understand what you're passionate about, and to be able to put that passion on purpose every single day and wring out every single drop of your life that you can with the clear understanding, family, you are not getting off this planet alive. So this whole, I'm going to save it for a rainy day and play it safe, even in the midst of a COVID thing, is insane. Now is the time to step out. You can change your life. I've watched your journey. Mark, you've got this beautiful show, you amazing radio show, massive PR agent. You've transformed in what everything in the business world should have said, Mark, you're insane to expand your business, to do the things you did in 2020.
People did say that.
Oh, no, they said the same thing to me. Like, no, it's time to get conservative and pull tighten your belt. I said, quite the opposite. If you look at history now,
hairdressing, you're good at it.
I always love the critics.
They used to say, stick to hairdressing, you're good at it.
Right. Yeah. Stick to what you know. Go back. What was that? The song, the line from Grease, high school dropout, or go back to high school. Don't become the beauty queen, the cosmetologist. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is the best thing that you can do, people, if I may be so bold to even offer advice. And I don't know that I'm qualified to offer anybody advice, because again, I always tell people I'm just as messed up as you are. I just know I am, and I know how to fix it because I have the system. But is to get crystal clear about passion and invoke it. Step into the model that you don't have to leave your home now, whether by lockdown or by choice or both, and yet you can still connect to the world in a whole new way. You can literally be connected 24 hours a day. Matter of fact, Mark and I, to be even more transparent with the audience, we were talking pre-show. He asked me how I was doing. I said, well, the funny thing is I'm on media all day long now. I mean, the Academy obviously has all the teachers, and the teachers teach now, but I was in the chair the other day, 12 hours, because you can literally be connected from a show to a podcast to, whatever app you're on, to social media. There's no such thing as being disconnected, family. So it now comes to the choice. And I think the biggest thing that I would invite people to look onto your question and summation is start to understand that there is a massive difference between a decision and a choice. One is automated, that you think you're actually involved in. That is a decision. One is a choice that comes from something deep inside of you that even though you may not understand it, you follow it. And then you start to understand that life can be an adventure or life can be an obligation. You choose. Either way, here's what's going to happen, kids. On the day of your death, two things are going to occur. One, the person you became in this life is finally going to meet the person you could have become in this life. And they're going to slam together at that moment, and you're going to see everything. What I invite everybody to do is shorten that gap through the Academy and go ahead and become the person you always could have become before that day comes, because COVID has done one thing. It's reminded us that we are terminal in this lifetime. Doesn't mean that you are not eternal. It just means terminal as far as human is concerned. And the question becomes, are you willing to leave it all on the table before the theme park of life closes? Because it's going to close, and it does require you to leave your spacesuit, your body, behind.
You have made just some great points there, especially around children and youngsters being affected and mental health. I myself speak in schools on mental health, bullying and drug awareness, and not only children and youngsters. I mean, I think it has affected everyone, but I think you're so right that at the same time it showed us the power of online connection, Zoom meetings, and I think the world is more connected now. They're more awake, and I do think there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're coming up to our next commercial break. We're here with Dr. Travis Fox. He shared his personal journey, obstacles he has faced, his own personal development journey. He's talked all about architects of being. We have had tips, guidance and support for the viewers out there to help them to move into a better direction. Join us after the commercial break. Welcome back to Brilliance Business. We're here today with Dr. Travis Fox. What an incredible show so far. Dr. Travis, the time has just gone so quickly. I could literally speak to you all day. He shared his personal journey of obstacles he's faced, tips, guidance, support for the viewers out there to move forwards in business and in life. His own personal development journey. We've learned about the Architects of Being Learning Academy. So that brings me next. We have around 12 minutes and there's still a lot to cover. I really want to go into Beyond the Secret. You was co-producer and also star of the movie. For our viewers out there and our listeners, tell us a little bit about the movie and what brought it about.
Yeah, so everybody, I should say everybody, let's say a lot of the globe has heard of the original film, The Secret, going back with Rhonda Byrne back in the early 90s. And everyone kind of got into this law of attraction. Right. And which is funny because no different than the Egyptians, the law of attraction is not actually new. It's been around, all the way back to Plato, if you want to go that far back. But how we apply it has become fairly new. But it's been roughly 20 years since that original film came out. And people were still kind of in this, if I think it'll show up kind of thing. And again, not that that's bad, but it really doesn't teach the other things that are happening in the law of attraction or the law of manifestations, because there's 9 other laws that actually govern that. And if those laws aren't unbalanced, then you can think it all you want. You can pin it to a wall. You can write it in the sky. There's a high degree of probability it isn't going to line up. And it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because we're not true in alignment of what that actually means. And so myself and the other co-producers, we all kind of got together and said, what if we all got back together 20 years later and said, hey, this whole thing where we thought we were experts? We didn't know what we didn't know, and we'd like to share what we've all learned as a collective. And you've got over 450 years of collective teaching between myself and Marie Diamond and John Asraf and Dr. Joe Vitale, who are all amazing teachers on their own right as well. And it was fun for all of us to get together and finally go, we don't know everything either, and we just want to put that out there on the table. And I admire my fellow teachers who all had the guts and the courage to go, we didn't know what we didn't know. Which is great, and I love that. And so when we really took the angle was, what have we learned? What is beyond the secret? Hence the name and the timing, as we talked about a moment ago. We actually didn't know COVID was coming. We didn't know. We had just started to premiere the film, and then COVID hit. For us, we had tours planned, and we're going to go out and we're going to do the whole thing, the media junket. And what ended up being really cool about that was it took it all away. And it invited everyone then to really see the film, because you can watch it on Amazon now and Netflix, and it's out there in the world. You can just watch it because you're already home, so you might as well. But for us, it became a real concept of we thought it should look like, meaning the tour and how we thought it was going to go and all this other stuff, and how it actually became, which ended up being better, were 2 different things. And it was a great lesson for all of us, again, to go, it doesn't have to look the way you think it does, family, because if you look at your own life, there's a high degree of probability it didn't look and doesn't look like the way you thought it was back when you were in middle school and high school and you were daydreaming about the life that you were about to have and schooling was supposed to prepare you for. In fact, it's probably quite the opposite. And what ends up interesting about that is if you're willing to step back for a second and look at the film's going to walk you through. And you'll hear me talk about the beautiful darkness in the film. I'm one of the few that actually says, hey, kids, you can talk about enlightenment and you can talk about, make a wish and you can think about that's great. But until you dive down in the darkness and really unpack that stuff that you've been carrying around like gold luggage, you're really, and I forgive my term, but I'm going to put it out there, family, you're just mentally masturbating. You're just going around and around and around and around and around and around, thinking, operative word, thinking that something's going to be different. And then as soon as you jump on that next emotional bandwagon, then that 2-step backward happens again, because the real you, not who you think you are, but who you are, shows up. And Beyond the Secret's going to take you to those next couple of steps of what have we all learned as teachers and journey people ourselves. Because if we had it all figured out, we wouldn't be on the planet either. We'd have gone home, wherever home is for you. So we're still learning too. And I was super proud of all of our cast, myself included, to come out and go, we don't know everything. Anybody who thinks that we do is, that you need to take us off that pedestal. We're all amazing teachers. We all love teaching. But remember, teacher is someone who is also on the path, who has just gone there before you. That's all it means. And you can hearken to the Japanese word sensei, which means one who came before me. And it is honoring that journey that all of us looked at each other and said, dang, if we had known this back in the 90s, imagine the things we could have done. But it's not a regret. It's a now coming from a space of, hey, let's pull back our kimonos. Let's pull back the green curtain of the little man that we call Oz and all of us and go, we didn't know what we didn't know either, but here's what we've learned. And we want to share that with you. And the film really takes you to that next step of not just think it, not just, going to the vision board and not just journaling, although those are powerful things. But when you drop into the deeper levels, the second and third level deep, and you start doing from that level, then those things that were put out now become powerful tools. And as Rhonda likes to call it, the magic, again, when you understand that life is magical anyways, because if you look at our neighborhood, we're the only one in the neighborhood on planet Earth. There's no other neighbors. So that in of itself is magical. So just step in and look at that. And then you start diving into these wonderful experiences of, hey, wait a minute. We're not leaving the planet alive. Maybe it's time we start really letting the music or the magic within us out, however you define that. But most importantly, we've got to be able to go through, because everything in our known universe creates from the inside out. The earth does, which is what volcanoes are for. So we create more, from more dirt or earth. Flowers, you put them in fertilizer or dirt, they grow up through it too. Why aren't we doing the same thing? And part of that is because we're so scared that we've already been hurt. We've already been wounded. We've already been disappointed. We've not lived up to our potential. We don't feel good enough. We compare. We have FOMO. We have all these things going on, none of which are true unless you continue to make them true, because you'll start to understand you've always been the architect. You're the architect of your life. You always will be the architect of your life, whether you choose to be aware of that or not. That's the personal journey. And the Beyond the Secret's going to take you to that. And that's why we called it the awakening. We didn't know that COVID was going to strike. So to us, it was dubious that all of a sudden, holy crap, the world is actually waking up. We're changing our financial models. We're looking at our mental health care. We're looking at healthcare at large. We're looking at what the heck does it mean to finally all just recognize we're all on the same little planet called Earth. There is no such thing as us and them. That's an illusion of the mind. There's just us, kids. Because when you leave the planet, there ain't nothing out there yet. Not that we're aware of, but something, you call it whatever you want. We call it great architect, is making those other planets turn. It's keeping that sun that we all look at every single day hot and warm so we don't freeze our buns off, unless you're up in Canada right now, which is a whole nother level of cold, right? But the bottom line is there's other things that are going on, that are constantly going on. And we really get the opportunity to wake ourselves up and going, am I just being a drama king or a drama queen up in my head? Or am I really going to live my life out loud, unabashedly, unashamed, and just go for it? Because you're in a theme park of life. And if that awareness comes to you, that awakening comes to you, then you can take all the tools from Beyond the Secret and the original Secret, and you slam them together, and you start to have a basic blueprint of, hey, I can actually architect the life that I want. And it doesn't have to look the way you think it does. In fact, it probably won't. But what it does have to do is it has to feel right for you and no one else. And be honest and willing to look and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't want to be a billionaire. It just looks cool on, Instagram to say that. Maybe I want to go to a beach every day and wake up and look for the perfect set of waves. Or, hey, maybe I want to go sail around the world because I want to sail around the world. Nothing is wrong as long as it's right for you and you're crystal clear on what true compass north actually means for you versus what you think it means for you. When you start to get those distinctions, as we talk about in the film and beyond, brothers and sisters, now change starts to happen because we're doing it from the inside out versus the outside in. And that's where the film's going to take you.
I watched the film, as you know, a few months back now. I like the fact that I'm such a big secret movie fan. I loved it. I read the book. It really changed my life. So it was nice to see just something a bit more current and up to date with all of the original teachers, and just sharing a slightly more current, up to date look at the law of attraction with those steps that kind of weren't in the first movie, like taking action and digging deeper. And I would say to everyone out there watching, anyone listening, now would be a great time to go and look at this movie, because it will just give you such a great boost of confidence, a bit more self-improvement to start making steps into a positive future. And I think we all need that now more than ever. Dr. Travis, I have really enjoyed a conversation with you today. We have just a couple of minutes before the show ends. Can you just share with our viewers, everyone watching, a little bit about the Jumping, which is launching, the Jumping Live, and how people can get involved?
Yeah, sure. We do a Jump In Live every month. The next one starts this Saturday. We keep it limited so that everyone has their personalized experience. All the master teachers in the academy are involved in that so that you have personalized reflection. It is a 7-day journey with me. I teach it live every single day, every single morning in real time, and a step-by-step blueprint of how do I jump into my life? How do I jump out of my head? What is the conscious mind actually doing? What is the subconscious doing? How do I start clearing out, what we call weeding the garden? These emotions that I've been carrying around, I know I'm carrying, but I don't know how to get rid of them. And I'm afraid if I get rid of them, what happens next? And how to deal mostly with moving from fear to freedom. And freedom can mean anything. It's freedom on all levels of existence, and you get to choose how to apply it. But you have an architected set blueprint on 7 days in a row. So you get 7 hours with me personally. We have 30 spaces left for this one. And then we do it again. You go to btuevents.com. That's btuevents.com, and go register. Look for the February 13th class and come spend 7 hours with us. And I promise you, 2 things are going to occur. You're going to get a real step-by-step blueprint, and you're going to see way past and beyond the secret. You're going to get that clinical. You're going to get how to apply it. And most importantly, you get measurable results. And you're going to start seeing in the first day exactly how you get in your own way, how to get out of your own way. And most importantly, who's actually really creating your life. Is it part of what you think is going on? Or are you really creating from the architect within? And by the end of the 7 days, the transformations we see in the 7 days alone are outstanding. The January jump was insane. It was a sold out event. I was blown away because I thought everyone's going to do the COVID thing. Because again, it doesn't have to look what I think it does. And instead, it's exploded this whole level of the academy of people going, hey, wait a minute. We need more events like this because, one, we're entertaining. And it is done live, and it's done through multi-cameras. So it's in our studio. And we do things on purpose that help you experientially learn, as opposed to going, hey, Mark, you need to do this. And hey, Mark, you need to do that, because you don't need to do anything. You get to choose it. But by experientially learning, we take you on a 7-day adventure where you never know what's going to happen next. But when it happens, you get to see how you're reacting, you're judging, you're getting in your own way, how you're messing with your own head. And then we explain it. And then you actually get to put that into real life work with yourself, your business, whichever, and you get to experience it. So it's not just, hey, come watch, me on a video, and that's great. That has its moment, but why not take that to an experiential, interactive place? And it is interactive. Then you get to interact with us in real time while we're going through it. But it starts this Saturday. So go to btuevents.com, come join us for the live jump, and jump into your life, because guess what? It's the only one you've got.
Dr. Travis, I have thoroughly enjoyed a conversation with you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, Mark. It's good to see you again, man. I'm happy for your success. You've done a kick-butt job over the last year, and I've gotten to watch it. So thank you for pressing the envelope. Thank you for continuing to take risks on your own. And with all due respect, thank you for being an inspiration for other people to go, hey, it doesn't matter whether you 2 divorced kids from 9 years old. You can create and architect the life that you want. Both of us are living proof. You just got to choose to live your life as opposed to let it pass you by. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you being out there.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching. What an incredible show we have had today. Until next time, join me on Sunday at 7 a.m. PST, 10 a.m. Eastern, 3 p.m.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.